Yes, it's Tuesday. It's only been Tuesday for 3.5 years, right? Yeah. Time means nothing at this point, right? Nothing at all. Welcome to a review of some fierce conversations here. We're going to dive in. Very excited. I'd like to start with our little mantra here. While no single conversation is guaranteed to change the trajectory of a career, a company, a relationship, or a life, any single conversation can. Any single conversation can. And to me, that's why this time together is so important, is to gain some tools, gain some strategies, gain some things that we have there in the box ready to pull on, so that at any moment in a conversation, we really can unleash that ability, unleash the ability to really change the trajectory of that career, relationship, client, right? All of it. Second, what is it going to feel like when we have these kinds of conversations? Quick review. What's it going to feel like? Well, here's what's going to happen. We're going to be speaking with our real voice. We're going to speak with our real voice, right? We're not going to be hiding behind a mask, right? You know, if you're going to have a fierce conversation, you're not going to be trying to look good and be right, right? So you're going to be speaking with your real voice. You're going to be speaking to the heart of the matter, and we're actually going to dive super deep into that today, right? We've got to get through the smoke and find the fire, right? What's really going on. You're really going to be asking and really listening. And what we've touched on before is our ability to learn how to ask better questions. We can affect pretty quickly. Our ability to get better at listening, however, really does take time. That takes some serious time and some pretty concentrated work, you know, because let me ask you, like, what does the exercise look like when you like get ready to listen better, right? Like how do we do that, right? And it is something that we need to do. So it's the challenge with it. It's a lot of it is really up here stuff. We are going to generate heat. And for some of us, that's where we begin to shy away from these conversations, is because we know the conversation is going to generate some heat, right? There's going to be some friction. There's going to be some tug and pull, right? We know it going into it. You're going to enrich the relationship. You're going to enrich the relationship. So hopefully the fear of the heat can be trumped by the goal of enriching the relationship. Remember, each and every one of us is in the relationship business. I don't know if anybody told you that when you got your real estate license, but that's what you're in, bucko. And you, yes, you will be different when the conversation is over. You know, that's a different approach to a conversation, I would argue, because many of us go into a conversation going, hey, I want to get what I want, as opposed to, I wonder how I will be different, how I might be changed as the result of this conversation, right? It's a very different posture to enter a conversation with. So we are going to today, number 4 on our 7 principles. Number 4, tackle your toughest challenge today. Tackle your toughest challenge today. And specifically, obviously, through the context of a fierce conversation, right? As a context of a fierce conversation. So I want to challenge you, write down what is potentially your toughest challenge. When it comes to a conversation, what is the toughest challenge you are facing right now? And I'm going to give you a moment to do that. In other words, what's the conversation that really needs to be happening right now? Perhaps think about the Moquita, if we remember that from last week, that which everyone knows and no one is speaking about, right? Is there a relationship in your life right now where there's a real challenge that's not being addressed? That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Now, this is where we're going to get vulnerable. Is anyone willing to share?
I'd like to share. I'm Mary.
Great. Hey, Mary, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I actually have a listing appointment at 1 o'clock today, and I want to have the confidence to listen to them, and to encourage them to list the house within 2 weeks. I think from other things that we've learned in some of our earlier classes, I don't know if it was this one or some of the others, that I did the comps. There's very, very little competition for this type of home. And I think they would be wise to list ideally like 2 weeks from tomorrow or Thursday.
ASAP.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, and you're assuming that there's going to be some resistance to that.
There might be, yes.
Okay. Why do you think that?
It's actually a relative, and
oh, great.
I know, yeah. And it's a dear relative. She actually passed away a couple of weeks ago, and this is her family, her siblings, and with whom I have a nice relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just concerned that they're overwhelmed by it. There'd be a lot of clearing out to do, and what I want to do is assure them that I can manage all of it and get it all done.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think they trust me. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could have some potential challenges. Maybe the trust in this area of life isn't as robust as we think it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may already be feeling overwhelmed, so we may have to try to unwind that to some extent, right?
Yes.
There may be, some separation type issues, like this was mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
And, they might be feeling a little bit hesitant to speak about it in what can feel like a bit of an antiseptic way.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get, in our head, we're going, we got to get the crap out of here, get this place staged and get it sold.
Yes. Yeah.
But what we really need to be saying is, hey, how can we in a caring way, right, have the home ready to sale, to be able to not only get it sold in a timely way, but also maximize the return, because that's a big part of mom's legacy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things to keep in mind as we go through this, and this was one of those phrases that unlocked some possibilities in my little pea brain. The problem named is the problem solved.
Oh, okay.
The problem named is the problem solved. Now, where I would caution you, Mary,
yes,
is you're going in having an assumption about what could be the problem. But we haven't had the conversation yet. Right?
Yes.
Allow the conversation to happen, and then, as best you can, name the problem.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because what I'm hearing is they may want to delay. They may want to take time in terms of the stuff. They may want to take time, because of this, that, or the other. And then the problem is they may not realize how much equity that could be lost in the sale of the property.
Yes.
If we delay and unemployment's going like this, right? Value of homes may end up going like this. Time is not on our side, right? So our problem named could be a huge tool for you there in helping them gain clarity, right?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Yep. Give me another example if somebody else willing to share an example of a conversation you've got coming up or that needs to come up.
I will.
Go ahead, Lee. Thank you.
Okay, so we listed a property about 2 weeks ago, and we've had 2 showings at a price point where we should have had about 20 showings by now with some offers. So something is not happening there. So we have to shift our conversation with the sellers and see, because it's a very tight break-even point, we have to shift because they were going to put in a septic system. Maybe the shift is going to be lower the price and let the new buyer put the septic system in. So that's a conversation that I think we need to investigate and have ASAP because time is money.
Yeah, yeah. You know, again, and thank you for prefacing it the way you did, you know, because some markets, if it's a higher price point, maybe a couple of showings in that time, you know, is within reason. But what you're saying is, no, we should have had 10 plus showings, you know, an offer or two, so we know that we've missed the mark, you know. And to me, one of the wonderful things about real estate is there's only so many things we can control, right? Is the seller willing to pick up the house and move it?
No, can't
right.
do. Can't do that.
Can't do that. So location is not going to change, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Other than the septic, are there major condition changes that could be quickly done to the home to get it more in alignment with price?
They could. They could
Okay.
spend some money. They could
Great.
do that. They could paint the walls and paint the, you know, make it better. They could.
They could.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
So to me, that becomes the choice that we set in front of them, right? What
Yep.
the market is telling us is we've either got to make these condition changes, which may mean get the septic changed, do some painting, or get the price more in alignment with where we're at.
Right.
If I may, Lee.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Do you feel that this is due to COVID-19 or something else?
I feel that the house needs work, and I think that the serious buyers out there right now are the ones that really don't want projects. That's what I'm finding. Like, they want things that are done and look really good.
Moving
Like
condition.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those sweat equity houses
Mm-hmm.
Would it
needs
help
sweat
to
equity.
show photos of the competition and things that have gone under agreement in the last 2 or 3 weeks?
To my seller, you mean?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that they were on the market before. So this is a relist. So they were on for 30,000 higher in the fall and didn't have
Right.
good.
So in
And it's a
their head, they've already
reverse.
made the price reduction. The
Mhm.
challenge is we're not there yet, right?
Yeah.
Another thing to keep in mind is, right, people may, and we reviewed this in a few sections back, right? It's proven people make their decisions first emotionally, right?
Mhm.
That's actually the number one determining factor. So, you know, changing out the carpets in a home makes a way bigger difference than saying you get a $3,000 credit towards changing the carpets out from the home, right? The $3,000 does not hit me emotionally when I walk through the door. The smell of cat piss and stains hits me. And I see that problem, I experience that problem, and then I immediately go, what other problems are there? As opposed to, wow, new carpet.
Lee,
Right.
I think you have a fierce conversation on your hands.
Yay!
I do.
Yay!
I do. It's exciting. Yes.
Well, listen, here's what we'll do. Call him right now, invite him in, and we'll all go on mute. And you just, yeah, okay, here we go. Okay. So a couple of things to be cautious about when we dive into tackling our toughest challenges. So first off, let us not begin with, so how's it going? Right? So how's it going is kind of an age-old lead into bad news, right? Just hit them with the bad frickin' news. Don't spend, 5 minutes getting ready to get ready, right? These are adults we're dealing with here, right? Also, the Oreo cookie approach is not a great approach, right? The Oreo cookie approach, which is I'm going to tell you something good, I'm going to hit you with the hard conversation, and then going to tell you more something good, right? That approach, especially in a work environment, can be really confusing, right? Patrick, man, I love what you did last week with the open house. Hey, you know what? Your communication really sucks in terms of follow-up. And, you know, keep up those great videos, buddy. What the hell's his takeaway from that? You know, am I doing well? Am I not doing well? Is there something I'm supposed to be working on? Just have the conversation of what needs to be fixed, right? Another potential error is, and I love how she expresses this, right? Sometimes we put so many pillows around a message that the message gets lost altogether, right? Well, you kinda, and then geez, and I don't know, maybe a little price adjustment, da da da. No, hit them. Hit them. Ask for permission and then hit them. Patrick, need to have a conversation with you regarding your follow-up communication. Would it be all right if we talked about that right now? Great. And hey, I know we've chatted about this before, but just, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 me being super direct, you know, what level of conversation would you like this to be?
9.8.
9.8. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to hit him with it. I'm going to poke him right in the freaking eye. Here is the problem. The problem named. Is the problem solved? Okay. So, and then the last thing is, you know, sometimes what we'll do is we'll write a script. We'll write a script to the conversation. And I don't want anybody to take this as a scripts don't work, don't do scripts, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying a conversation isn't a script. A conversation isn't a script. And when you try to write a script for you and somebody else, you don't know how they're going to react after the very first statement, after the very first question. And so your script's only accurate for about this much of the script that you wrote, because we can't write their side, right? If I'm going to really be here, if I'm going to really be present, I've got to more just pick the topic and then let the conversation happen. Be open to the heat. Be open to the fact that I'm going to learn something. Does that make sense? The other thing is we don't necessarily want to do the dump truck approach either, right? Don't hold back on feedback to somebody. You know, I think for you guys, I think vendor, right? Maybe you've got a vendor who hasn't been doing a great job keeping you in the loop on the lending side. And maybe there's a bit of a history of that. You know, when you go to address that conversation, it does not help to say, back in 2017, when we worked with the Smiths, we had, you know, you failed to send me an email on, and then last year you failed to, and then, you know, hold on, I got 6 more pages, right? That doesn't help anybody with anything. It doesn't help anybody with anything. The other thing I want to be sure that we take away from this conversation is tackling tough challenges should be reserved for those relationships that we want to keep intact. There are some people you will come across in life and in business that you quickly come to a realization that I cannot work with this person. So think of that in a hiring sense, right? I've hired somebody, you know, first few months have gone okay, and then I find out, it comes to my attention that they've been stealing from me. For Brad Knowles, that's a non-starter. We're now done. There isn't a take 2 on that with me, right? So I'm not going to be having a tackle my toughest challenges today kind of conversation. I'm going to get out of business with that person. That conversation is going to last about 1.5 minutes. And it may or may not involve a police officer with a gun. Okay? So that's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about, I'm in business with somebody and there's a particular thing that we're struggling with that could have some major implications. And I want to address it while it's still a gradually thing. I don't want it to become a suddenly thing. Think about Lee's issue that she shared with us, right? What happens if Lee doesn't address this? right? You guys have been in this business long enough to know. Give me the steps of what's going to happen as Lee does not address our pricing of this home. What's going to
It
happen
sits
next?
Day after day after day.
It's going to sit. Right. Great. What else?
Seller gets resentful. They're questioning why it's not being shown.
Correct. So the relationship's going to
And then
become
it's going to
strained.
be our fault. Yeah,
Say it again.
They will tell that eventually it's our fault. They will tell it's our fault.
Right. Yes, they're going to blame us. Right. Right. Absolutely. What else?
Not enough marketing.
Not enough marketing. Again, kind of keep throwing blame at us. Right. What else?
House isn't going to get sold.
The house is not going to sell. Remember, Lee's avoiding the conversation. So when does that come to an end?
When the contract ends, if I don't have the conversation.
Right. When the contract ends. Right. How many of you have ever called an expired listing that didn't realize they had expired because their agent had not been in contact with them? Right. I just saw a couple of hands. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So all effort that put in will have bared no fruit. What else?
It's going to weigh heavy on my mind.
Yeah. Now Lee's going, man, can I even sell listings? Right? What else?
Seller starts to badmouth their lead. Of their
Bingo! Bingo! Yeah! How fast does bad news spread? Fast!
Like
Really
coronavirus.
fast!
Suddenly.
Suddenly. Lee was banking on 2 other listings, and now they don't return her call, and she'll never know why. The why is because she didn't address the issue with these people and didn't realize they all play bridge together, or they go to the same church, or they happen to bump into each other at the grocery store, right? Now, all of a sudden, Lee's business as a whole, not that one listing, but her business as a whole is beginning to be negatively impacted because we didn't have this one conversation. And I would argue, here's the thing, I'd argue the seller's right. If we don't have this conversation, right, it is a marketing problem as far as they're concerned, right? We owe the seller a fiduciary duty. So if we're not going to address the issue at hand, we're not doing our job. If we haven't addressed pricing, the seller's sitting there going, well, I guess we're not marketing it right. I guess we're not attracting the right buyers. My neighbor's house sold. Why can't mine? She never said anything about pricing. Diane, did you have something?
No,
Good. Well, I'm just picking on you then. I'm just picking on you.
because I unmuted myself.
Exactly. So we can see that the delay of one simple conversation like this. Now, it's a challenging conversation, right? They're not looking forward to the conversation. We've got to lean into it, right? But if we don't, the ramifications are so much worse. Remember, a fierce conversation takes time, and everything else takes more time. Think of the unwinding work that Lee's going to have to do for those potential listings to even get them, and the damage control and da-da-da-da. Or set the appointment, have the conversation, get the price reduction, or take the house off the market. That's also an appropriate answer, right? My favorite technique in going into a price reduction conversation, and some of you haven't done this in a long time, so I'll give you the Brad Knowles technique. Do you want that, or you want me to just hang up now? All right, I'll do it. Great. Brad Knowles technique. We walk in, we sit down, we pull 2 pieces of paper. How many? 2 pieces of paper out of our briefcase, whatever, right? Yeah, actual paper, not 2 freaking iPads, actual paper, okay? Right, so I pull out 2 pieces of paper and I put them on the counter. One paper says what?
Price reduction.
Price reduction. What? And have I already written in the price?
Yes.
Yes. And it's effective today. It's a price reduction. The price is already in there. It's effective today. And the seller can see it. That's where we're going. What's the other one?
A withdrawal?
Termination of listing agreement. With what date on it?
Today.
Today. Those are our options, folks. If we know that we know that we know that the house is overpriced because the market has told us, we either adjust the price or we take it off the frickin' market. And when you pull those two pieces of paper out and you put them on somebody's kitchen table and then begin a conversation, right? It got real quick. These are our options. We've either got to do at least this much of a price reduction or take the house off the market. There is a third option that I like to joke about, but don't prepare. And that's an extension of the listing agreement for X number of years, however long you think it's going to take for the market to catch up to the price the seller thinks it's worth. Because eventually it will. Might be 2 years, could be 10 freaking years. I don't care. I'm going to be in real estate, so I'm happy to do that too. Just understand, I will spend $0 marketing your home during that time frame. Are we willing to walk in and have that kind of conversation? Because that is what we're talking about. Right? We've named the issue, haven't we? In that scenario. Right? We have a pricing issue or we have a reality issue. Right? We are not in reality. We now know it. It's time to either make the right adjustment or move on. Make the right adjustment or move on. All right, so this has been a lot of stuff. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I want to open it up for questions, comments, concerns. Hit me.
Okay, this is my question.
Yes.
What if the owner can't see the difference? You have the comps, they can't see the difference between a really tight, updated kitchen with stainless steel appliances and the way their kitchen looks after their husband did all of his years and years and years of manual labor. So
Sure.
Emotionally, maybe she can't see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She doesn't want to say that because he's standing right behind her.
Correct. Yep. Couple of things I would say is, perhaps address it. I like to address it where I use an example of myself, right? Because that's often an approachable way where people are able to kind of come onto my side. The first house I ever owned was a house that I built. And when I say I built, I built probably 50% of that damn house. You know how hard it was for me to sell that house? It took me 18 months to wrap my head around selling it. 18 months. It was not easy, So I know you guys have worked really hard to make the adjustments to this kitchen. And I can really appreciate that. My job is to come in here and talk to you about what the typical buyer is looking for. And let me show you some pictures of what the typical buyer is looking for. And if that doesn't work, the challenge is my normal approach, Elizabeth, would be to then take them on a tour of a few of those kitchens so they could physically see them. So we're a little bit limited right now. So this is where I'd pull out a laptop and have some listings queued up that really show, look at this, look at this, look at this.
I did a Zoom call and I put it up on the screen and I'm scrolling it because I had it on share screen. Do you see this? Mm-hmm. Literally, I mean, she pretended she could not tell the difference. When I say tight, updated kitchen, right. She claims it. Or if I said, well, you see the type of stove they have? Right. Well, I don't like that. No, it's not about you. This is right. What the other buyers see. They chose them over us.
Right.
Can I add something really quick?
Jen?
Yeah, can I add something really quickly? A really quick script that I like to use when talking with sellers. One, I appreciate their work and what they've done with their house because they want to hear that first. And then I would follow it up with something like, hey, do you know what the buyer's best resource is right now for looking at properties? What they're looking at to compare your house against? What? Oh, HGTV.
Right.
So when they're looking at HGTV all day long, when they're doing their house buying research, do you see the houses that they're looking at? and how they're and I just give them their questions of how are they making their decisions on that show. Have you seen that? Because they're watching HGTV too, by the way. So again, I kind of just throw it back at them and say, hey, you know what, this is not about me or you, it's about that buyer coming in. And you've done a great job with your house, yet the buyer is looking for, like what Brad said. So I just
and when you have the history that you can show, in other words, you were on the market and this other house was on the market and the buyers picked the other one.
There you go. It's so easy. To me, it's clear.
Right.
But and she was a realtor 20 years ago, or an agent.
The
20
worst.
Emotional for them.
The worst. Realtors are the worst freaking buyers and sellers out there.
It's like, come on, you can see it with me, but no. Can't
So
see it.
I always ask, who do they think is buying the house? And if they say, well, probably a young family, okay, what do you think young families are looking for? Start asking them questions instead of telling them. And that will help bring them clarity because they have to make the decision about what those buyers are looking for and figure out whether they have it or not.
You'd like to think so, wouldn't you, Precious? What's your name? Ann?
You'd like to think so.
Like
But here's the thing I'll leave you with. And sometimes you have to have that conversation and give them a little breathing room on it. Let it sink in a little bit. Give it a couple of days, because it's a couple of days of no more showings. It's a couple of days of more uncertainty. It's a couple of days of, right? And then readdress it. Eventually, we come in with 2 pieces of paper. Their opinion doesn't matter anymore. We now know, and if we allow it to stay on the market one more day, we're lying to them. We're lying to them about our ability to sell the house. And we're better off getting out of business with them and saying, I cannot do it. So let's withdraw it now than to continue to market it at that price. So we've gone over, folks, and I've got another group waiting for me, that another bunch of victims, as it were. So I will see you all tomorrow. Jen, thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. And we got 3 more days of this. So
Thank you,
wait to share the
Brad.
last
Thank you,
few
Jen.
nuggets.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Mary.
Thank you.